And thank you so much for having me, Kim. It's really,
Mhm.
really wonderful to share. And I hope that people can see that there is miracles and magic, light, salt and light, and goodness and beauty in the world. You just have to open your eyes.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you're here. I am Kim Sorrell. I am a speaker, I'm an author, podcaster, TV show host. I get to do a lot of fun things in life. My favorite, by far, thing to do is to meet people, meet incredible people. And today I get to introduce you to somebody who I think is one of the most fabulous people I've ever met. The things that Cyndee has been through and has a smile on her face. Like you're just going to be amazed by the wisdom this woman drops and the story that she tells about her life. And so I am so excited to welcome to the show, Cyndee.
Hi, Kim. Very nice to be here.
I'm so bad with last names. And before we got on air, I said, now, how do you say it? And it's Dala,
Dhalai.
Dhalai, Dhalai,
Yes.
Cyndee Dhalai. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love names. So it's crazy that I'm so bad with last names because I love names. I'm always like, oh, what are you naming the baby? Whatever. But anyway, welcome to the show, Cyndee.
Thank you.
When we first met, I thought, oh my word, you're a natural for my show. You need to be on my show. And so I'm happy that we're connecting this way and that here you are. And I cannot wait to dive in and let people know who you are. And so I want to start with who was 8-year-old Cyndee?
8-year-old Cyndee was a very mischievous little girl who read a lot, who loved to climb, who always got in trouble for speaking her mind, who questioned everybody, and who lived in a world of her own.
I love that. So you lived in a world of your own. So you lived in a world, you used your imagination, which
Yeah,
sometimes we stop doing when we're adults. And it's such an
I
important thing
still
to
do it
do.
actually.
I
I
love it.
yeah, I still believe in magic and miracles and you know looking beyond what the eyes can see, because life is fun actually. No matter what you go through, life is fun, and there are touches of heaven every single day. All you have to do is look.
So true. So true. Wake up and just say, today's going to be a great day. And then look
Yeah.
for the greatness in it,
I say,
right?
I wonder what
Yeah.
great thing is going to happen today. What am I going to see? Something, what am I going to see that is going to make me think? What can I smile at? Who can I make smile today? You know, who can I touch today? Who can I help today? It doesn't have to be anything big, just a smile is enough.
So true. So true. So at 8 years old, you're this mischievous girl living in her imagination, getting in trouble for speaking your mind. So those are things that I see in kids sometimes that you go, gosh, later on in life, that's going to be such an attribute. Like that's going to take
Yeah,
you far, right? When you're a
yeah.
kid, it seems naughty, but then as an adult, you're like, oh no, it's those are good things to be able to talk, to be able to stand up for what you believe in, or to be able to ask questions, and I love that. So kudos to 8-year-old Cyndee.
Yeah, because I was a teacher for many years before I retired. And I love that children would, to spark imaginations and to have them see something and make up stories. To me, that was beautiful because I love to make I love to make up stories, especially for children. And most of my stories tend to have a moral to it or some lesson to it. And I would love to combine like magic and fairy tales and also life lessons. So most of the children, I thought they were like 5 years old, 5 to 6. And then I taught for a couple of years, those who were like 8 to 10. And it's amazing how, you can give children a thread and they can weave a whole tapestry of making up stories, because I love sparking imagination and letting children see that a balloon can be something magical too, if you know how to look at it. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. I love that you were that teacher. You're the teacher. So you're the teacher that those kids remember you. And
because even now I have like kids who I taught, because that was like a long time ago, because I started teaching, like I taught for over 25 years. And some of the children I taught in 1990 still remember me.
That's so cool.
And they ask my children when they see him, how is Miss Cyndee? You know, or like I would go out and I went walking in the town and this young woman said, hi, Miss Cyndee. And I'm like, okay, I taught this child. And I remember she said, yeah, I remembered you from, and I taught her in like second year, she was about 6 years old. And she remembered me.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I'm not surprised at all, because there's something special about encouraging imagination in kids instead of discouraging, you know, because either one can happen, right?
But even now, as adults, we need encouragement in our imagination. And I don't mean video games and all these. They are good because they're like, the people who do these things are very creative. But sometimes you need to expand your own imagination. And as adults, we can do that. We can look at something and look at it in a new way. For instance, we see a tree or we see roots, trunk, branches, leaves. Yeah, there might be fruits on it. It has a purpose. You know, it's there. If it's a flower plant, it's there to decorate. But then you have to look deeper at what does that plant teach us. And you can create a whole story about a tree. You know, the lessons from struggle and resilience and branching out and exploring and always reaching for the sky. So there is a story in that also. You have to just learn how to look at things. And very often, as we grow older, we get so bogged down by keeping up with life and keeping up the pace with everything and, you know, being part of how we're supposed to be and conform, that we forget that I'm an individual. I am different. I'm unique. I'm special. I mean, it may not seem that way, but I am unique. I am special. There is something special about me. There's a reason why I'm here. And I have a lot to give. And I have an imagination. And my joy comes from in me. And it's up to me to decide how I want to see life and how I want to live and how I want to, you know, grow as a person.
That's so true. That's so true. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that we are all unique, that nobody ever been like you. There will never be anybody exactly like you. Like, you're the only you. And no matter what you see when you look in the mirror, I promise you, other people see that you are unique and special and wonderful. And when you look in the mirror, you should see the same thing, the greatness, the incredibleness that is that uniqueness.
And I think that's where it begins. The first thing you have to see is, don't look at how other people see you. I mean, it's nice to be valued and it's nice to be appreciated. But if you don't appreciate yourself first, then what are you projecting to everybody else? If when you look in the mirror, you say, oh, my nose is too big. My face is too fat. Oh my God, I look old. My eyes look tired. I don't like my hair color. If those are the first things you see, then what that stays in your mind. And you say, you look at yourself and say, hey, you look very beautiful this morning. I love your eyes. Those are just your eyes. That face is just your face. Your hair looks beautiful. That is only your hair. And you said, okay, as a human being, I might be replaceable in some people's lives, but I will always just be me. And I'll always just be me. And I love myself. And that's how you have to go. You have to step from that. You see, you can't, when we begin, comparison begins is when we look at somebody else's lives and say, okay, I lack this because I don't have that. But what do you really lack? You don't lack anything. Yes, sometimes you may need things that, you know, you want to achieve things and you think you're falling behind or you don't measure up. But it's not a lack, because once you can breathe and once you can move and once you have the basics in life, how much more do you want? How much more? If you have 5 houses, can you live in all 5 houses at the same time? If you have 3 cars, can you drive 3 cars at the same time? You know, that is how I look at life, you know. Yes, you want to be comfortable, but value yourself first and said, okay, I work, I want to achieve things, I have dreams, I want to make an impact in the world, I want to touch the people around me, I want to inspire people. But the whole thing is, once the more you share, as you find the more you have room in you to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how I look at life. That's how I look at everything.
That's a beautiful way to look at life. And coming from you, Cyndee, it's different in a lot of ways than coming from other people, because of your life has not been easy. You've gone through some things that you could, if you wanted to, just crawl back into bed and wallow in self-pity. But instead you're like, no, I love my life and I love waking up happy and I look for the joy in things and I look for the story in things. And that is so admirable and so remarkable. And the thing that I love about you. So I'd love for you to tell more about your story. And because, you know, too, Cyndee, people go through stuff. We all go through stuff. And I think there's something wonderful about seeing somebody who has gone through things and smiles, right? And yeah.
Because when we see someone, all we see is your face. I could look at your face and say, oh, you look so calm and you look so pretty and you look so nice and, you know, you're so bubbly and outgoing. But I don't know what's going on inside of you. I don't know what your life is like, you know, so very often we have to stop judging people just on their outward appearances. But if you really feel someone, because sometimes we meet people and I said, you know, they look so happy, but then you notice things about them, like their eyes don't really smile, their face has a fixed smile on it or something, and you know it's not natural. And you say there's more to it than that. Well, in my life, I have been through a lot of things, and I think we all go through things in some form or the other. And like I use the term barons, which most people use the term scars, but the term I use is barons, which is your battles you face in life, the rejections you get from people, the ostracism we face in all different ways, the negativities we get growing up and from society, and also our self-doubt. That's why I use the term barons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we all go through it in different degrees. It may be you're battling with yourself in terms of what job do I want to do? What career I want to search? If I'm supposed to stay here, if I'm supposed to leave. And then you have rejection. It might be rejection from friends, rejection from a family, rejection from a job. And then we have the negativity in that you get criticized for sometimes things you do, sometimes things you don't even do, you get criticized for. And you get judged. And then that all builds up into your self-doubt in that you wonder, I'm not good enough. Well, can I do this? You know, why is everybody picking on me? You know, this life is so unfair. All these bad things always happen to me. You know, I expect this, except I get this. And people are not nice to me. And people leave me. And, you know, you kind of get yourself into this self-doubt. And what you find happening is that a lot of people sometimes they get so drawn into this cycle of self-pity. And in my life now, I grew up in a traditional home, and you weren't supposed to do things, you were supposed to follow these things. And I would always ask questions like, I don't understand why this is happening. I don't understand why that is happening. I don't like this, I don't like that. And I would always question, because don't tell me that honesty is the best policy and you always have to be honest. And then you turn around and I see you telling people something else, and I'm asking, but why didn't you tell them the truth? You know, because to me is, if you don't lie, then you have no reason to remember what you told somebody, because it's just the truth, you know. And I would always think that. And then people would say, you know, you have to always be yourself and be nice to people, and, you know, and then I would see other examples and I would say, but that's not right. You know, and I got criticized growing up because I was always outspoken. And when I was 16 years old, I got to the point where I said, enough. this is how I am. This is who I am. You know, and I would rather be myself than try to fit into anybody else, because I don't want to sacrifice myself or what I feel or what I think to fit in with anybody. And that's what I did. And I started just doing things how I want. I wasn't rebellious in the sense that, you know, I didn't follow rules. It's just that I adapted to suit myself. And I did that. And then, because even in my choice in like getting married, and that I come from a tradition where, you know, your parents have to approve who you're going to get married to. And sometimes there were arranged marriages and stuff like that. And in my case, I said, nope, I'm going to get married to who I want to get married to. And I got married to someone who's outside my religion. And I was given a choice. And they said, well, you know, it's either you get married to him or you get disowned. And I chose being disowned.
Mm.
And that's what I did.
That cannot be an easy thing to, I don't know, you know, when you're in love, it's like, you just want to be with that person. And so I think I would have done the same thing. I would have just said, well, forget it, you know, forget my family if they are going to disown me over the person that I love. But still, it's not an easy thing to do. Cyndee? Okay, why are you frozen? You. Okay. Back in. Okay. My internet. Doesn't seem to be an issue. But yet everybody else's internet is being an issue. Why is that? Girl, you're going to come back in. I'll look Thursday.
Hi, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened.
Electricity went, and that's what happened.
Oh, the electricity went. Okay.
And then internet went off and stuff like that and things. So that's how I ended up back here.
Okay. All right. So you have electricity again now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Good, good. Well, then we can just pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
And let me do this, and then we'll just roll into it. So you were talking about how uh we were just kind of getting into your story. So you chose to marry a man, and your choice was, do I marry this man? If I marry this man, I'm going to be disowned from my family. So we'll just kind of go into that if that works. So
Yeah,
I'll
that's
start,
okay.
I'll bring us back in, and
Yeah,
then
I
you
know.
go. Okay. All right. Okay. So wow, what a choice to make. So I think I would have done the same thing as you, I have to say. I think we're kind of kindred spirits. I think we have a lot in common. And if I was in love with man, like if I was in love, madly in love with my husband, if I had to choose between my husband and my family, I would have chosen my husband. But in certain traditions, that's even harder. So,
Yes, it is. Yeah.
yeah.
I grew up in East Indian tradition, and this was, you're talking about, this was like in the 80s, and you weren't really, you had like certain traditions as like, your parents had to approve who you want to get married to. And I said, listen, I don't have to live with you all for the rest of my life. And this is my choice. And since then, in all those years, they disowned me, and nobody ever spoke to me, and I never spoke to them in all these years. And I was married for 3.5 years.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So, so like kind of from that moment forward.
Yeah. And from that day, it's like, that was it. That was my choice. And my husband and I worked together, and we built everything we had, and we had a very, very good life together. No
Yeah.
ups and downs, I mean, in every relationship, a marriage, but we
Sure.
were together for 33.5 years.
For how many years? Say that again.
33.5 years.
Okay. I just wanted you to say it again because that's a lot of years, right?
Yes, it is. I know, because a lot of people now, marriage is like a short term thing for
Yeah.
a lot of people. As soon as something doesn't fit you, it's easy to get a divorce or to move on. And I don't know. To me, it's like, if you make a commitment to someone, and relationship requires work. Every relationship requires work. Whether you're married, whether you're a partner with someone or whatever, that's a commitment you have to make in yourself. And you
Mhm.
have to realize that life is not a bed of roses. And because you love someone doesn't mean that it's always going to be like you're on cloud nine, because you live in reality and difficulties will come up, and you have to learn to face everything. But you are together. It's a you and a me. And when we got together, it means that we became we. And
Mhm.
that's how it has to be.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I totally agree. It can be easy to kind of lose the spark because life gets busy and you're both doing things. And if kids come along or, whatever life is throwing at you, you can lose touch with each other.
Yeah, you can. But you see, that is why you have even though you are together, you have your own space, which is understandable, because remember, you're two different individuals coming together. So you have to learn from the beginning that there will be compromises, there will be sacrifices. Listen, you are going to have disagreements because you both have different perceptions, you both have different point of views and stuff. But what you have to realize is that when things come up, don't focus on the circumstances or the events, because that is separate from the person. Remember
Mhm.
what you love about the person. Remember why you got together in the first place, because that person is still there. That is the person. Remember who you love.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, that's so true. That's so true. Like, like I think sometimes about, when you're walking down the aisle and you can't wait to say I do, you can't wait to be together, right? You're so excited. And then, you say I do and you go on this honeymoon and everything's great and wonderful. And you get home and then he leaves his dirty underwear on the bedroom floor. And you're like, oh my word, who is this man that I married? What was I thinking? And all of a sudden that action becomes who he is, but that action is not who he is. He's
yeah,
the guy that said I do at the altar, right? He's the one that you married. This is just something that he did. That's so correctable. Like that's so easy to handle. Put a hamper there and tell him you'd like him to use it. You talk about stuff like that, but that doesn't define him. Don't let don't let those little things, I believe you, too often we let little things like that become who the person is to us. And that has nothing to do with who they are. It's just something they do.
We are human. We are all imperfectly human. And sometimes it's so much easier to see, remember the bad things than the good things. And remember, everyday people are changing their brain. In every circumstance, you're changing your growth. So they may not do something the way they did before. And you have to understand that the same way they do things that you don't like, you also do things that you don't like. So there must be balance in that you must see an action separate from a person. And I've always said that. You don't let the circumstances dictate feelings. You have to always remember, this is what I loved about the person. This is why we got together. This is what I saw. And yes, of course, when you live with someone, then you begin to know them better, because going out with them and dating them before is totally different. And you have to realize that there are depths in people, there are things, because you all have flaws, you all have missteps that you make. You might sometimes say things the wrong way, but you have to realize that that is separate from the person. Remember what you saw in the person and value what you love in the person.
So true. So true. So well said. Here's a little pause for my editor. Your volume for some reason has gone way down.
It's gone down.
Oh, now it's perfect. Now it's perfect again. Yeah, it was down. So, but they'll fix that. They'll take care of that.
Yeah.
So yes, so we'll go right back into it. So yes, what you said is so true. And you and I come from a different place than a lot of people because of, you know, we both have lost our husbands. And I think when that happens, you have an even greater appreciation for the years that you did have together and the person that you had, right? So you were married for 33 and a half years. And what happened?
Well, he was good. He was fine. And then he just got sick suddenly. And in 2 months and 3 weeks, he passed away. It wasn't expected to, but he did. That was a total change because it was totally unexpected in that I am the one who most people expected to pass away because of the fact that my body has a lot of illnesses in it. And like I've been sick. Well, my body has been sick since 2010. And so most people would have expected me, not him, to have passed away. So it was a great shock because he did get ill and it was really bad. And then like he started treatment and the doctors, everybody was enthusiastic, that, okay, he's going to get well. And when he gets better, he probably won't even come and tell them hello again. And he probably forget about them. And that was the attitude because nobody expected it to just turn around so quickly. And he died on Christmas Eve.
Oh, on Christmas Eve. Oh my word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's unpack this a little bit. So since 2010, you've been dealing with a lot. You've been dealing with a lot of physical issues and to the point where you've wondered at times how long your life is going to be, right? And you've had to deal with so much, but here you are, optimistic and cheerful and happy while you're dealing with all of this stuff. And then while you're dealing with that, your husband gets a bad diagnosis that you think is going to be okay. But then he passes away. And that's so shocking. And it's such a life change. Yeah.
Yeah, because like my body was diagnosed with like lupus and chronic kidney disease and asthma and a few other diseases and stuff like that. And the thing is, I'm allergic to all medication, which means that I can't get any treatment.
Mm.
And well, lupus is something that is autoimmune. So, and your body attacks itself basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have chronic kidney disease, which they can't test for because it's a catch-22 if they were to diagnose like how bad my body is, what drugs and stuff like that and dyes they have to use could kill me. just trying to find out how bad everything was. So, and then I did go through 4 years of fog in that I was so sick. I mean, my body was present, but I only have like brief flashes of clarity, like when after I flatline and I returned, then I would like for a short period of time be aware of everything that was happening. And then I was in a wheelchair also. So it was like I was the one, if something was to happen, most people expected it to be me.
Well, because it was you. I mean, because you
Yeah.
flatlined,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
few times.
Yeah. Yeah. A few times. No big deal. Just flatlined a few times. Yeah. But
Like I said, there must be a reason because they said, okay, Cyndee, you have to go back. It's not your time now. Bye bye. So they sent me back every single time. I don't know why, but they did. And I said, okay, fine, no problem. And then, well, I started recovering, and nobody knew how I managed to live without any medication at all. Because I don't take medication in lupus, you need to get treatment, and I don't take anything at all because I'm allergic. And I have not been to a doctor or a hospital since 2013.
wow. Yeah.
And I manage all on my own. And I was in a wheelchair. And then I said, God, I don't want to be a burden to anybody. And I don't want to be in this position anymore. And only you can help me. And so I'm asking for your help.
Mm.
And I said, okay, because I would try to walk before, but then I'd fall down. And the problem with me falling down is that I can damage myself and something could get broken. And I can't fix it because I'm allergic to anesthetic. So not as if the doctors can give me anything. So I got buffed a lot for that. For you're not supposed to be walking, and that's a risk you take. And if something happens, nobody can do anything for you. And then I said, look, enough is enough. And I just said, well, God, you have to help me because only you can do it. And then I started using a walker, taking a few steps, and then I had used a cane before I ended up in the wheelchair, and I started doing that, and now I walk as normal. It's a risk actually to be walking, but I still do it, and I climb trees, and I play with my dogs, and I do stuff.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, it's amazing. And not only do you do it, not only have you come through all of that, but you come through it with a smile on your face, and talk about, imagination and optimism and all the stuff. And so, for people out there that are going through an illness or with a loved one who's going through an illness, it's tough. And in the middle of it, it can
Yeah.
just be so hard. But I think there are decisions you have to make. You have to figure out how you're going to deal with things and how you're going to come through and making the decision is a big part of it, right?
Yeah, because sometimes you see, I made the choice that my illnesses that were in my body are not going to define me. It is not who I am. It's my body, yes, and there are things wrong with it, but it's not me. And you have to learn. You have to tell yourself. You see, a lot of times when you get caught in this cycle of this is what I used to do before, because I was very independent. I love driving. I love doing things all on my own. And certainly now I couldn't. I
Mm.
couldn't drive. I was medically unfit. I couldn't teach anymore. And I love teaching. I lost that sense of independence and the freedom to go out and do whatever I wanted to do. I mean, so it was constricted to me. And then I had to deal with the fact that I couldn't eat certain foods because I got allergies to it. And I had to be careful of all the things I ate and be careful around people because if they had a cold and then COVID came along and I was, I was high risk for all those things and viruses and flus and stuff like that. So I couldn't really be around a lot of people. Um, so it's kind of restrictive. And I got frustrated with myself, to be honest with you, because I said, no, this is not how I'm going to be. This is not how I'm going to live. Yes, I'm in a wheelchair. Yes, my body has all these illnesses in it. Yes, I can't get any treatment. Yes, my life has changed drastically from and this is not how I wanted my life to be at this stage. And I said, look, it's up to you to find your joy, your happiness in where you are now. And I learned to move around in a wheelchair and to cook and to clean and to look after things I love baking, and I baked a lot, and everything was like at my level, and there's open space. So I moved around as well as I could. Of course, I couldn't do everything by myself, but what I could do, I did the best of it. And I found that when you try and you adapt, you find a strength in you that you didn't know you had. And you begin to grow in a different way. In that, because of the restrictions of your physical body, you learn to grow in a more mental, intellectual, personal level, because this is you. You are fighting yourself. This is an internal battle because you're fighting yourself every single day. And when symptoms of illnesses come up, you tell yourself, I don't want to go through this. Why do I have to go through this again? I give up, I don't like this. I don't deserve this. But then you see, yeah, you can give yourself, it's okay to give in to those periods of, feeling overwhelmed by what you're feeling and feeling frustrated at your illnesses and the fact that your body or whatever happened to you is happening. But at the same time, don't wallow in it, because the minute you begin to wallow and sink into that, you get depressed and you keep going deeper and deeper into that abyss of self-pity. And that's the one thing I said I would never allow myself to do. I'm not going to allow myself to be self-pity, because I have value. I can do things. The fact that I'm still here, the fact that I can still breathe, the fact that I still have people around me who care about me. I still have things that are functioning in me. I still have a mind that can think. So I can write, I can read a book, I can play a crossword puzzle, I can learn a new skill, I can learn to paint or play a game, or I can learn to go outside and look at the colors of the sky and really pay attention to what actually is present, be in the moment. Because like you say, when you have an illness that you don't know about or that you can't control to a certain extent, your time, like I tell everybody, I live on borrowed time, and I live by God's grace, because I don't know when my body's going to say, okay, Cyndee, your time is up. Let's start fighting again. You know what I mean? And the thing is that very often we say, you have to make plans. I want to do this. I want to do that, and you plan for the future. But what about now? This is where you're living. I'm living in the present. I'm living right now. This is my moment. This is where I am now. I don't know what's going to happen this evening. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen next year. But the only thing I know is this is where I am present now. This is the moment I'm breathing in. And yes, I'm going to have things I look forward to and I would like to do. But at the same time, I want to enjoy this moment, this time, and be grateful for all that is in this moment. The fact that it's a bright day, the skies are lovely blue, there are clouds, the breeze is blowing. I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm breathing, you know, and I feel content. And that is what we have to do. Even if you're at a job and you're hustling and you're saying, God, I have this deadline to make, or I have all these things. And then in your mind, you're thinking, God, when I go home, I have to make dinner and look at the children and make sure they do this, or I have to go to the grocery, or I have to put gas in the car. Yeah, those are things you have to do. But for now, you are working. Be happy you're working. Be happy that you are present and able to have a job, and that you're here in this moment, and that you have people around you who you can talk to, and that you actually have children you can worry about, even if they sometimes drive you mad, that you have children you could worry about, and that you can, when you walk outside, you can look up and you can see the sky, that you can actually see, that you can walk, that you can do these things. And I mean, I'm not being like, oh, also spiritual and whatever. I'm just telling you, sometimes the simplest things bring the greatest joys. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we get touches of heaven every single day.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. And it's so true. We can be so hurried that we forget about this moment right here, right now. And one of the things I lived this year figuring out the true meaning of love. And one of the things that I figured out is exactly what you're talking about. That I used 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, etc. Love
Yes,
that is patient recognizes that this moment is the most important moment of your life. What's in the past is in the past. What's in the future is yet to come. And
yeah,
so be present in the moment with the person that you're with. That is showing love that is patient, is being
yes,
fully there, not thinking about dinner later or who has to get to soccer practice or whatever else is going on or something that happened last Tuesday, but be completely and totally there for the person that you're with. That is love. That is love. And for yourself, it's the same. Loving yourself. Be in the
yes.
moment, be present, and appreciate this particular moment. And
Because no matter what you look like, no matter what's going on in your body or whatever, the only person besides God who can love you the most is yourself. Because when you think about it, who is the person you are with every single day, every second of every day, even when you're asleep? Yourself. You are with yourself. How often do you stop to think? You meet a friend and you say, hey, how are you today? How is everything? Tell me what's going on. Have you ever done that to yourself? Have you ever stopped and said, Kim, how are you feeling today? And I don't mean in regard to I have all this work to do and whatever. I mean, how are you feeling as you today?
mm,
Well, my, or like if I ask me, Cyndee, how are you feeling today? I'm in a good mood. I feel nice inside. I feel contentment. I have things to do, but in this moment, I'm reflective. So you see, when you do a checkup on yourself and you talk to yourself as you would talk to a good friend or to one of your children or to your husband, that's when you connect to yourself and you begin to be more mindful of your own thoughts, your own feelings, because you might be sitting down doing something and your mind is wandering to something else because that's how it works. You don't stay in the moment sometimes, or you might be having a conversation with someone and you might be eating dinner with your family and everybody's talking and you yes, 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 but your mind is 100 miles away on something else you're going to do. So sometimes it takes, even if you take a few minutes every day to just sit and look at yourself in the mirror and say, how are you today? What are you feeling right now? What did you go through today? And you kind of go through and say, well, I got upset today because someone was supposed to call and they didn't call, and I felt disappointed. Yes, but you got over it, right? Yes. So how do you feel now? So you kind of ask yourself, and when you talk to yourself like that, you bring yourself back to who you are. And that begins to change your approach to how you see life. And sometimes, like we talk about conversations with God, people seem to think that you have to have a specific time to sit down and pray or a certain place or you have to have a certain setting. But you can have a running conversation with God in your head all the time.
yeah, yeah, so true. So true. That's so good. And yeah, so it is important. I have to tell you that for me, it took a lot of practice to really be in the moment because
Mhm.
I think you can get geared in a way, like wired in a way that you're anticipating what's next or, having to feel like you got to think about what's next or what's
Yeah.
behind. And so it took some practice to be in the moment. It took some practice to take inventory
Yeah.
of yourself.
That's
But
why
it,
you take a few minutes every
yeah.
single day, different times of the day. Okay, you go to the washroom, don't you? When you're in the washroom, spend a few minutes and reflect. We say ruminate. People say, you have to ruminate and think. Ruminate is different from reflection. When
Mm,
you ruminate, you go over things over and over and over the same thing that happened. But when you reflect, you take a backward step and you look at it from a more objective point of view. And you give yourself credit. You say, okay, this happened, but and I thought this, but it's okay, and you can either forgive yourself or you can accept your disappointment or whatever and say, well, okay, next time I'll know better if something happens or whatever. And okay, I'll make a note of this happened and you move on. So you see, even when you take a shower, you can spend time thinking because you're by yourself. And it's not if you have to cut out time to think and sit down and schedule in a certain time when you're driving, when you're taking a shower, when you're walking to go something, when you're moving about in the grocery, it's nothing much. You can just a few minutes after that to reflect on things and
Mhm.
to give a simple thank you, Lord, or whoever you pray to, whether it's God or whoever you refer God to, a higher being or whatever religion you belong to. You can do it the same way, So just how long does it take to say thank you? A few
Okay.
seconds,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So good. So true. It's also true. So yeah, take those minutes and take those moments, and reflection is a good thing. And what can you learn from things that have happened, and what can you do better or differently, or next time that situation is up, how are you going to handle it? And it's good to really look at your day or look at yourself and go, okay, here I am, my own self. I'm curious. So we you lost your husband 33 and a half years. That's a long time. You're with this man. You think you're going to be together for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, whatever. You're just going to be together forever. And all of a sudden you find yourself alone. And people go through this, and it's unfortunate. For me, um, I didn't know how to be single. Like, I was married for 29 years, and that was my life, and that's what I expected my life to be. And so it was really figuring out a whole new life while figuring out how to deal with grief. And so tell me how that was for you.
It's the same thing with me because like I left a home environment and I got married. So you went from like home to marriage. So being like technically being on your own was not something that I knew. Now, mind you, I did a lot of stuff because my husband worked shift and stuff like that. So I was alone by myself a lot and, had responsibility for a lot of things while he was working and then with children and stuff like that and teaching. And so I knew how to do stuff. But it was unexpected. And then, like, it was like you had to do a whole sense of adjustment in yourself because now I was actually by myself because my children are grown and they're really great children. And but they're married and they have their own lives. And I had to learn to like get accustomed. Now, mind you, there were times when I was alone, so I kind of knew because when my husband would shift and my children were out and they had different schedules and stuff like that. So, like for extended periods of time, I was by myself. But you see, you always had the sense of other people always being there with you around, whether they were present or not. But now it was totally different in that I live all by myself. I have to see about everything for myself. I have to manage everything by myself. And also the actual absence of someone with you because you feel the absence, the physical absence of someone. They might be in your mind and you still remember and things like that. But when you wake up or when you go to bed or a thought may cross your mind and you want to say something and you realize that, oh, there isn't anybody to say anything to. So that was an adjustment in that learning to live all by myself. And like I had a lot of like things to say about in the aftermath. And so I was busy and I was occupied and I did stuff and thing. And then it kind of came down on me is like I thought I was managing because of everything I've been through and whatever. Because after my husband died, I was asked why didn't I die instead? And people ostracized me because of that. I think people ostracized me because of the fact that I was alive
Mm.
and that I managed to have all these things in me and still be alive and still be here and still be able to do things. And people didn't like the idea that I was still here. And they actually said it. I thought you were the one to die, or why didn't you die instead? So. And I said, well, you have to ask God that, because to be honest with you, I don't know. And I never thought to ask him why. Maybe he'll give you an answer, because I never asked.
Mm.
That was my response. And
Those are some harsh words.
yeah, it was harsh words, especially from a relative.
Mm. Yeah.
So, but like I said, my attitude is that that's your opinion. It's not my opinion. And there is always someone higher than me. And they decided that I'm supposed to be here for some strange reason. So who am I to question it?
Right. Right. So how did you deal with the grief? So you're busy doing stuff, and then it kind of came crashing down a bit. How did that work for you?
It came in, and then I thought I was managing because of all the things I've been through. You learn how to deal with stuff and pain and whatever, and my illnesses and everything that happened, and what I faced before from my family and stuff. So I thought on some level I was managing pretty good. And then I would take it day by day and I would feel it, but then I'd say, okay, listen, you got through this before, that, whatever. But grief is messy. Loss is personal. And it goes deeper than most people think. And it affects you in every single way. Because it's not as if you feel just the absence of the person or the connection, because you'll always have that, the memories living in you, and what you feel won't die, because you'll always remember that, right?
Mm.
And it was like suddenly you were pulled. And then in 2023, I had is when a loss hit me so hard that I found myself saying, Cyndee, this is not something I want to go through. I don't like this. This is, and you felt all the pressure and everything coming down on me. And my mind was like, no, this hurts too much. I don't want to go through this anguish. Why did this have to? And that's when I began asking, I mean, why do I have to go through this thing again? Why? I thought I was managing. This isn't, this isn't me. And I sat down and I said, well, the only way I know to do things, or I know I had to battle myself as I did with everything else. I had to face what was going on inside of me, or else it would end up in a bad way. And I have never been one to run from anything. So I said, okay, you have to step into the fire. You have to go through this and sort yourself out, because you can talk to 100 people, 1,000 people. You can talk to experts. You can talk to everybody. But learning to manage, especially a serious loss and grief, is something you have to do for yourself. And only you know what you can do, because nobody else feels your pain the way that you feel it, because you had a connection. And this was your personal connection to someone. And I write. No, I always write in my head, but I never actually sat down, and I always wanted to be a writer. And most people said, why don't you write about your story and things like that? Because you're an inspiration, and you've come very far in life, and it's a miracle, right?
Mm.
And I sat down and I said, okay, I need to deal with this in my way. And I started writing. And in 1 month, actually, I wrote the book.
Wow. Wow.
And everything that came out in that book was what I taught. It was what came up. Because what I found out is that when you grieve and you suffer the loss, one thing happens that is a catalytic or catastrophic incident in your life. You find you pull memories from all over, because everything you associate with pain, a friend leaving you, having to move, everything that was associated with loss comes streaming into your head. And that's what the book was, because in the book, it's I had all these, I remembered, your mind is like a library that you pull out books, like, how you have certain categories. So when you feel pain, your mind goes to all the times you felt pain. When this one told you something, when this friend was mad with you and broke up with you, when your dog died, so everything comes up related to those incidents and those feelings. I remember when you suffer grief, you go through a vast array of emotions: anger, denial, irritation, frustration, selflessness, selfishness, everything like that. So your mind goes back to all these memories, and they bring up incidents of all these things that happen. And while you thought you had gotten over it, it's like you get pulled deeper and deeper and deeper, because it's kind of like everything is piling up on you with that one loss that you suffer, the one deep, impactful loss. And I had to go through that, and I wrote, and in the writing, I realized that you can lose someone, but you have to learn that life is like that, because from the moment you are born, you also begin to die, because we don't know how much days we have on this earth. We don't know, because our days are numbered, but we are not the timekeeper of our lives. And that's a reality with everyone. And one of the greatest risks, the most courageous thing you can do in life, is love someone. Because when you love someone, you also understand that you can lose them, because life is uncertain and unpredictable. And you have to prepare yourself for the absence and for that happening. It could be a breakup, it could be the passing away or something or whatever. And so I had to work through all of these things. And as I wrote the book, is how I write. To be honest with you, exactly what I thought is how I write. There was no changing of anything in the book, because I said, this is exactly what I feel, and this is what the process, this is what it is. And I wrote, and that helped me, in that I realized that there are things you can do to not really, well, I should say, to get over, because you don't really get over grief and loss, because you'll always feel it in you. That will always be part of you. But you can learn to manage, and to a certain extent alleviate. And you find that by accepting your loss and agreeing with it, and you can find a way to take simple steps, because before it was you and me, and we. Now it's just me, and there must be a reason why I'm still here. And what would it serve me to just go through the motions of living when I've been given this gift of still being here? And maybe you can use that to help other people. Maybe you can use that to be more compassionate and understanding, and find out why you are still here. And remember, life, you go through stages, and there's a season for everything in life. Remember, there's a season to born and a season to die. And well, that's when I started putting the writing and doing that, and that's how it came out. And I learned through writing that you are responsible for how you handle your grief, and you can manage to hold it and create space at the same time to have a life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. When you think life is over, life as you know it, life as you knew it, life as you dreamt the future to be, can come to an end. And
Yes.
and I think so much of grief too is the death of the person that you love, that you want to spend the rest of your life with, but also the death of the dream, the death of
Mhm.
the dream of the future, the things that you were going to do, or when the kids are gone, this is what's going to happen, or the things that you
Yeah.
talk about, right? So you deal with that too, that you have this entirely new life. And I think it can't kind of help but crash down at some point in time. But you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. You have to figure out, are you going to stay down, or are you going to, embrace this new life. And I think sometimes people feel guilty, like, oh my gosh, if I really embrace this
Yes.
life, it looks like I really didn't care about him, or her, but it's not true.
No, it's not true, because in a sense, sometimes people seem to think that, how come you're still smiling? Why are you so happy? Because, everything, what happened or whatever. So I said, because there is still beauty in life. Because something bad happens doesn't mean that all the goodness and light and beauty from life is gone. And by kind of, what should I say, pigeonholing yourself in that mindset of, okay, this person is gone and my life is empty, don't you think you are denying the impact or treasure, or you are denying honoring the memory of the people, of the love of the person? And sometimes when you step outside and you say, okay, yeah, the dreams are gone and we had planned to do this, what about if you do it for yourself and honor that person's memory? Because this is what we plan to do. And I know you're not here with me, but I can do it and honor and achieve it for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I can honor your memory like that. And people seem to think that, okay, you shouldn't be talking, so many years have passed now and you shouldn't be in this position and you shouldn't be talking about. Yeah, but that's denying the person's existence.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, okay, you shouldn't be talking about that and the person is gone. Yes, but that's denying. And what you should do is you said, yes, I know. I mean, I know the person passed away or something, but they were an important part of my life. And I like to remember things we did together. And I like to, in moments, you know, if I go walking and you see something happening or like colors change, hey, I remember this is when we went walking or whatever. And sometimes even treasuring the memories and remembering the happy memories makes it easier in you, in that you remember, yes, there's a loss in my life, there's an absence in my life, but I can find joy in the memories we have, and I can still feel a connection because this is what we did. All these places brought back happy memories or whatever. And so you see, you learn to honor. By living, you honor that you honor that person and what they did in your life, because maybe they encourage you to go start walking or something. And when you start, every time you go walking or you start exercising, or every time you travel to somewhere, you remember the fact that, hey, this person impacted my life and this is what we plan to do. And hey, I'm doing something that I'm honoring that person's memory by doing it.
Mm-hmm. So true. Oh my gosh, so beautifully said. I'm so sad that we are at the end of our hour. This has gone by way too fast. Your book is incredible. It's your writings and poetry, and it's wonderful. It's inspirational, and I encourage people to get it. Where can people find you and find your book?
Okay. The poetry book is called Pieces of Me, Touch My Soul by Cyndee. It's on Amazon.com. And the book on grief is called Grief is the Price You Pay for Love by Faye Allian. I wrote that under a pseudonym, and both are available on Amazon.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, buy the book. And the grief book is awesome too. And it's nice to know that you can get through it. I like you said, you don't get over it, but I feel like you can, the way I like to put it is you get on top of it. You can get on top of it and smile and live and be grateful and joyful again. So thank you so much, Cyndee, for everything, for being here today, for who you are, for everything you've gone through and here to tell about, and your compassion and your empathy. And I just appreciate you so much. And I appreciate all of you for being here, joining us today. And I just want to say, just keep your heart open and your love loud.